ever since the Democratic Party lost the race against Donald Trump, where Kamala Harris failed miserably, they have not accepted the blame, failure, and responsibility that they should have for such a massive effing loss. Instead, what they've chosen to do is talk amongst each other and to flail miserably on their various platforms and to ultimately blame either Joe Biden, racist Hispanics, racist blacks, or for that matter, progressives. And in many of these cases, they laid their blame at progressives. Now, I have been rather astonished by this, considering Kamala Harris didn't run a progressive race, and yet blame is being cast about and blame is being aimed at lefties. It's pretty astonishing. I'm tired of seeing it, and at this point, the left strikes back. It is pretty wild to me that they would say it was the left. The Democratic Party is held by the left. It's so many of these lefties that is controlling Democratic policy. And yet, Kamala Harris ran on transnational gangs, tough on the border. She ran around the country with Liz Cheney, pillar to post. And then on the issue of foreign policy, she was a war hawk. Again, arm in arm with Liz Cheney on that particular issue, deriding Donald Trump for the things he actually did right and the things he actually did well, such as making deal with Kim Jong-un in order to bring down hostilities. And Donald Trump said he was going to end the war in Ukraine. Harris didn't like that, so she attacked him for that. And even on the issue of Gaza, she was one-to-one with Joe Biden, who was one-to-one with Netanyahu, defending that war, paying for that war. One murder after the next of women and children to the tunes of tens of thousands. Joe Biden stood there, Kamala Harris stood there, having people like Matthew Miller, John Kirby come out, shield and lie and protection for that government. That genocide couldn't take place without Joe Biden and Kamala Harris allowing it to take place. And Kamala Harris, under no circumstances, would deviate her language from that situation. She didn't run on Medicare for all. She didn't run on an expansion of Social Security. She didn't run on increasing the minimum wage. She didn't run on free college, meaning these were the things that the left wanted. And decidedly so, these are not the things that she ran on. All of this being true, does it seem to affect one iota the conversation that is coming out of the various echo chambers in the Democratic Party, who, as I pointed out in the beginning, are not accepting the blame and the failure for this issue? Okay, fair enough. They don't want to do that. I want to show Roland Martin. Roland Martin is given a preemptive FU to the rest of America, effectively saying, don't cry on my shoulder when it all falls down. All of you people that voted for Trump, don't come to me and cry on my shoulder, because I and everybody else is going to say, I told you so. So he is bitter. He is crying, literally has tears in his eyes as he is flailing about, telling people, don't cry on my shoulder. This is vile on so many levels. A, he is preemptively, seemingly hoping something horrible happens so he can come back later and say, I told you so. I told you so. I want to play this clip because I want to talk about this, because this is somewhat of a subset of what I'm seeing all across Democratic media. People who shill and cover for the Democratic Party and is doing it right now. The very act of not taking responsibility and voting and basically blaming voters for your candidates' inability to inspire or get people to go out and vote for. Instead of you pointing the finger where it belongs, you decide to once again shill and cover for that party, blue, no matter who, shill and cover for the party. And said voters are the problem. And when Trump blows stuff up, I'm going to say, I told you so. Let's play this clip. This is Roland. Tears in his eyes, not having a good day.
So y'all can enjoy your win, but I'm telling you right now, a lot of you who voted for Trump and you're rejoicing right now, there will be tears. And when the tears come shedding, you can't cry on our shoulders.
Can't cry on my
And you can't come to say, I don't know how this happened. And all we gonna say is, we tried to tell you.
We tried to tell you. Can't cry on my shoulders. Can't cry on my shoulders. Can't cry on my shoulders. You can't do that. That's not something that you could do. Look, I will tell you this. There is no person who was a Democrat that voted for Trump that celebrated it. I want you to nail that down. Meaning everything I said up to the lead of this video is true. But it's also true that the people who ended up voting for Trump that were Democrats or they were on the left didn't do so enthusiastically. They didn't do it because it was a win. They did it because they were beat down on some level and didn't necessarily feel like they had an out. And to be fair, the first question I asked when I heard this video, I thought to myself, who is he talking to? Like, who is this aimed at? Who is the target audience for that? And so I went and looked up who voted for Trump. And I looked up who voted in both years, 2020 and 2024. So it has to be aimed at people who voted for Trump, right? 41% of the youth vote went to Trump. The majority of Arab voters went to Jill Stein or Trump. Right here. 21% of black men and 13% of blacks total went to Trump. Let's keep going. Native Americans went to Trump. 46% of Hispanics went to Trump. 53% of white women went to Trump. Just pointing out all the stats. And I would add in another demographic. The people who didn't show up. The people who didn't show up. Because truth of the matter is, from Roland's standpoint and many Democrats' standpoint, they don't really make a distinction between the people who didn't show up, the people who voted for Jill Stein, and the people who voted for Trump. From their point of view, you didn't vote for our candidate. And from my point of view, I consider it an ethereal vote. If you had a situation where somebody voted in 2020, 2024 came around, the fact that they voted in 2020 showed that those were people that A, were gettable, and B, at some point showed a propensity to go to the polls and vote when they felt the need to do so. So if you get to 2024 and that person didn't feel the need to do so, couldn't get out of bed, or at the very least couldn't get up the gumption to go, then I'm going to say that that is a vote. That person is making a choice, one way or the other. And that choice is getting across an intention and opinion. And in that case, a non-action is by definition, ironically, an action. Them not voting is them voting. That's the point that I'm making. I would argue that Roland doesn't see a difference in those things. All right. So when you're looking at the vote tally like that, I also went to look at the number of people that voted. So I want you to see this. Look at this. And let's go to this one. This one. Okay. All right. Exit polls. And it gives a breakdown of the various demographics, and the numbers are what I read prior. All right. Now, this is the vote tally because I want to show the ethereal vote that I'm referring to. 75,142,609,000. That's Trump's vote. Harris vote, 71,881,000. I'm sorry, 71,881,179 votes. All right. If you go to Joe Biden in 2020, 81,000 votes. Joe Biden got 10 million more votes than Kamala Harris. 10 million more votes. You go to Trump, 74,224. Trump ended up with 1,000 more votes. I'm sorry, than 1 million more votes than he had prior. Put that in context. So, in 2024, Kamala Harris got 10 million more votes than Joe Biden. Trump got 1 million more votes than he did in 2020. So the Ethereal Vote is effectively millions of people that just didn't show up, that didn't come to the polls, that didn't get out of bed, that at one point did vote for Joe Biden, but didn't feel the need to show up and vote in this election. Hence, I call it the Ethereal Vote. They made a choice, and they made a choice of no confidence, effectively. Then I thought to myself, well, he's not talking about all of those people. Meaning, he's not talking about whites, be it white men or white women. He is talking about constituencies that the Democratic Party considered to own, considered to be theirs. So he's talking about the youth vote, Hispanic vote, the black vote. And I would imagine from his point of view that 25% or 23% of black men that voted is probably too much. So I would imagine he's probably aiming it at that particular vote also. And the Arab vote, because the majority of Arabs voted for either Joe Stein or, for the matter, Donald Trump. Now, if we start with the Arab vote for a moment, are you really going to go after the Arab vote? When I see images like this, and I ask myself, for one, who the hell is crying on Roland Martin's shoulder? Two, it is unmanly to cry on TV in the way that you're crying on TV. I think you need to calm down a little bit. Three, when I see this,
وين شبشبك يا عمر؟ انقطع. شبشبك انقطع في الطريق؟ انت جاي من بيت حنون؟ كيف الطريق؟ والله صعبة. من الله علينا طلعنا من هناك.
Joe Biden did that. Joe Biden did that. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what your president did. The guy that you want people to vote for, that party, did that. That would be utterly impossible if it wasn't for Joe Biden giving money, support, political support, diplomatic support, and lying to the American public on that issue. Your president is paying for and funding a genocide. So this notion of people crying on your shoulder, who's crying for them? Who's crying for them? I mean, your president is effectively dumping tens of billions of dollars into allowing that to take place. So are you really going to aim this at the Arab vote? Meaning her brother, cousin, mother, sister, whoever that is, may have family here in the United States. And I would imagine in the same way that African Americans can identify with other African Americans in the United States when police brutality or something to that effect, are you really going to blame the Muslim community for voting for Stein or, for that matter, Trump, considering that Joe Biden has been funding this genocide all the way through? Are you really going to do that? Do you really blame them for that? For that matter, the youth vote, who stood up for this issue, who literally put their bodies on the line for that issue, pointing out that, hey, you're funding it back in genocide. This should be a red line. Why do you not have any standards associated with doing this? This is outrageous. And they got beat at one college campus after the next, crying for and putting their bodies on the line for a genocide that your party has been backing. And instead of dealing with that fact, what did Kamala Harris say? We're going to stand by Israel. We're going to arm them to the hilt. I'm not going to do anything different than Joe Biden. And when they asked her, hey, new way forward, what would you have done differently over the course of the administration? What was her answer? I can't think of anything. Basically nothing. So the youth vote, an Arab vote that was extraordinarily sensitive to the fact that your president was funding a genocide. Kamala Harris had nothing to say for him. Your party had nothing to say for him. Wouldn't even let him speak at the DNC. Wouldn't even let him speak at the DNC. And yet, you out here crying on air, angry at voters for not backing your candidate as your person full on backs a genocide. Okay. Fair enough. Then you get to the black vote and the Hispanic vote. And what was the other one? The Ethereal Vote. You understand that when candidates, it is the candidate's responsibility to frame a vision, an argument, and to build a coalition in order to get people to vote for them. And elections 101 is get out your base. 101. That is the most basic element of elections. A candidate has to get out their base and mobilize their base. And the candidate that can best and efficiently get their people out to vote, that candidate will most likely win. Election 101. Do you honestly believe that it is enticing the voters to see a candidate running around the country with this?
I tell people often, I spend a lot of time working on national security issues, and when people that I know in the Republican Party tell me they might be considering voting for Trump from a national security perspective, I ask them, go look at his national security policies. Please go look at them, because what he's proposing in terms of withdrawing from NATO, welcoming Vladimir Putin to attack our NATO allies, praising, he praises Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, and President Xi of China, and Putin.
She went running around the country with her. Do you think that's enticing to your base? I'm not even talking about just lefties. Do you honestly think that going from pillar to post with that cretin, Darth Vader's daughter, is going to be enticing to Democrats? That it's going to get them jizzed up? That they're going to be like, yes, I need to go to the polls in order to vote for Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney? Why do you think that? Why do you believe that it is the voters' responsibility to get revved up and jizzed up for that? Why? Why is that supposed to be something that brings Democratic voters out to vote for your candidate, let alone lefties? And the reason why I'm saying this is because of the disparity between the number of people that came out to vote for the Democrats in 2020 versus the people who did not show up in 2024. That ethereal vote would have won it. Meaning, if Kamala Harris got Joe Biden's numbers, she would have still beat Trump by 5 million votes. How are you blaming voters? It is the responsibility of the candidate to create a vision, to create a coalition, to give energy to the group in order to get those people out there because they see something that they believe in, that they want to fight for, they want to push for, and that they care enough about to go to the polls to pull the lever. It is Democratic policy that is the issue. You didn't run on Medicare for all. You didn't run on increasing minimum wage. You didn't run on expanding Social Security. You didn't run on free college. Hell, you didn't run on free community college. You didn't run on any of that stuff. And when you look back at what Joe Biden promised, we're going to increase the minimum wage. They blew that off almost immediately. We're going to legalize marijuana. They blew that off almost immediately. We're going to try to get school loan stuff. And then it gets shot down in courts, one after the next. I'm pointing out that the things that Biden said he was going to do, he didn't do. And Kamala Harris, who was the new way forward, was so milquetoast. It was humiliating. Your candidate ran a bad campaign. And not just a bad campaign, a bad strategy. Liz Cheney wasn't an accident. The entire point of running around with Liz Cheney was to reach out to moderate Republicans. So the thought being, well, you can lose progressives if you can migrate over to a new coalition of moderate Republicans. Because it's so hard to get these progressives on board. Because, they actually want your government to do stuff. They want healthcare and education. They want expanded Social Security. They actually want an increased minimum wage. And our model of getting elected is going and begging rich people for money who don't want to do those things. And so it is easier to not work with progressives and work with moderate conservatives, or for that matter, moderate Democrats who don't really need those things anyway, who don't really care about those particular issues. And we can get a new coalition and we can minimize the power of progressives in the party. It's not about the woke stuff. It's about the economic populist progressives, the Sanders wing, that you want to stop dealing with, or at the very least stop being relied upon, and migrate to get into the Republican circles. Don't take my word for it. Take it from Chuck. This is sure.
And it's already won a large percentage of those people over. On the other hand, Trump is so new that for every, this is the second point, for every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2, 3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois and Wisconsin. The voters who are most out there figuring out what to do are not the blue-collar Democrats. They are the college-educated Republicans who lean Republican or are independent and in the suburbs.
That was their plan. That was their plan. So how are you waving your finger at lefties, crying on air, bitter, effectively saying, don't cry on my shoulder, I told you so. Your anger, sir, is misplaced. All of your anger is misplaced. Who you need to be aiming at is your political party that allowed a candidate like that to run, that thought it was okay for her to run around with Liz Cheney, that did not care that she wouldn't take a position on genocide. The notion that you can wag your finger and say, hey, you all should get in line and support this genocide is outrageous. The idea that you are yelling at voters when your own political party had the plan of blowing off the left, blowing off the base, and getting Republicans. And you're out here crying at us as if it's the voters' fault or responsibility to put your candidate in office. I also, frankly, don't just blame you or the party. I blame you and people like you. You have no standards. It's blue no matter who. One concentration camp less. And you've allowed your party to get worse and worse and worse, to get lazier and lazier and lazier over time because, again, after all, you had no standards. Your party is back in a literal genocide. And your response is, but you got to vote for Harris. Is she going to do anything different? Nope. But you got to vote for Harris. You must realize that not everybody is a blue no matter who Democrat. And not everybody is going to be automatic to vote for your party. They actually have to do work, to get people. They have to, be a politician and trying to get people to vote for him. It can't just be you should automatically, almost in some kind of esoteric way, vote for the candidate. Your blame is misplaced. Your blame should be with the party. Your blame should be with the candidate. And the blame, frankly, as I pointed out, should be with yourself. If at some point you guys had standards, maybe your candidate wouldn't be this bad. And maybe if you had standards, your candidate would be held to that higher standard and have a much better chance of winning as opposed to losing to Hitler, as you call him. Roland Martin, one concentration camp less Roland. Like, share, and subscribe. Emblemed fate. Do you think Democrats will continue the Red Scare after loss? Yes, they will. The moment that Donald Trump tries to end the war, they're going to scream that he is working with Putin, that he is some kind of plant. And the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump should not care one iota. They've done the Russiagate stuff. Donald Trump got reelected again. The fact that Donald Trump got reelected again showed the Russiagate stuff failed. He's going to get all sorts of screaming media headlines and everything else. Donald Trump should ignore those screaming media headlines because at the end of the day, the referendum ran, he won, referendum passed. So regardless of what you tried to do with the Red Scare and everything else, this stuff was litigated during the campaign. Harris was pro-war. The pro-war contingent lost. Pro-war contingent lost. I'm going to end it here. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.